So
I think that gives us a little bit more of an understanding of how we, went 29 unanswered last week.
sure, sure.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't us. It was them. Yeah. I mean, it was a tough Saturday. I mean, I think there was a hope that there were some things that we would carry from last week into this week, more so in the fourth quarter than the first three quarters. And you didn't see it. I know Coach Aranda kind of nailed it on the head. We couldn't move the line of scrimmage offensively, and we couldn't move the line of scrimmage defensively. You're just not going to win a lot of football games when you don't win at the point of attack. And so I think that there were some things that we saw. I mean, Monterey once again popped. He showed that he is the fastest guy in the field, but we just didn't get in any kind of rhythm. Offense, defense, special teams. And if you can't pinpoint a segment of the game that you dominate, you're probably not going to win football games, right? Whether
Hmm.
that's your offensive line is dominant, whether that's your run game is dominant, your pass game, right? You get off the field on third down, you convert on any of your fourth downs, right? There was nothing that you could look at the game and really say, wow, this is something that we really took control of.
Well, and I don't feel great about saying this, but not only do you not see any areas in which we were dominant, it's hard to, a couple of weeks ago, I think we were talking, and in fact, I know we were, and you said, well, what's this team's strength? Is this team good at? It's still trying to figure that out. And tonight it was kind of the same thing. You had Caden Jenkins with an interception. You had Monterey Baldwin with a couple long passes. I think Blake Shapen continued to battle.
Yeah.
He battled. He was over 300 yards passing.
Yeah.
But, not only were there not areas in which you can't say the team dominated, it's hard to say that there were really areas tonight that they were especially good at, or certainly when you look at a Texas Tech team coming in that hasn't that hasn't won on the road very often in the last couple of years. Just their second win under head coach Joey McGuire on the road, and with a backup quarterback, you would just hope that the Baylor offense would find some areas that even though Texas Tech might win some battles, that this team would win others.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, Taj Brooks rushed for 170 yards today on 31 carries. I mean, you look at, just simply put, he had 31 carries and he averaged 5.5 yards a carry. Right? Our leading rusher average was Dawson Pendergrass, averaging 6 yards a carry on 2 carries.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's got to be somewhere where we win there. Whether it's, the yardage, whether it's the attempts, whether it's busting big plays. Like if you look at our comparison just on rush yards on the day, I'll do adjusted. I'll do just rushing yards and then I'll do adjusted for sacks. We rushed for 17 yards in 4 quarters on 30 carries.
And that's almost as the inverse of Texas, right? Against Texas, we were just shy of 2 yards per carry, and now we are about half a yard per carry.
Going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And I think what's so frustrating about this is if you look at Tech's schedule, their losses were both on the road. One was to Wyoming in double overtime. The other one was to a pretty good Oregon team. Other than that, they just hadn't won on the road. And so coming back on the road, things are stacked against them. But the issues that they had getting to the quarterback, right? I think they were 117th in the country in sacks coming in. I think they had 8 sacks on the year and 7 sacks tonight.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't ever want somebody doubling their numbers positively against you. And so it was just hard, man, because watching the game, anytime we had any flash of hope or anything that started going in our favor, they would just pick us apart after that. You know what I mean? There was whether it was Taj Brooks, who I got to tell you, when you don't get any penetration on the defensive line, you allow him to sit back there and dance the way he did. And he just literally is death by a thousand cuts.
Remind me of Le'Veon Bell early in his career.
Very Le'Veon Bell.
Where he would just kind of pause for a second and, then pick a spot.
And really the way to combat that is penetration, right? You got to get into the backfield. You got to shake things up. You got to get him to stop his feet, not slide his feet, right? Because even when he was stepping and waiting and patient, he was waiting and ready to go. And so you just didn't see any penetration. And then you didn't see us tackling particularly well at the second level once he broke through the line of scrimmage. I mean, I think that's the other thing that you have to kind of be concerned with is just tackling. I mean, I still think that from the linebacking position, if Matt Jones showed up, that he laid people out. But how many broken tackles do you think you saw in the day?
A lot.
Anytime he sat there, he waited, broke through the line of scrimmage, and then he would just, it was hard. Now, I think the corners, competed again. There was a couple that first back shoulder fade, I think was just a great pitch and catch. Caden Jenkins had another one that was caught on him on the sideline. He was in position. He was fighting, right? Plays are going to happen like that. People are going to score. A couple of those plays where people are just wide open, running scot-free, it's just tough because it's like it's one thing to lose when you're in a position to make a play. Just one-on-one, sometimes you're just out-strengthed or outpowered. Um, but there were times where we just weren't even positioned to make the play, right? We were nowhere near the play, and I think that's just us getting schemed, right? Understanding where our weaknesses are, and we're at a disadvantage to some degree because Joey knows this group in and out. And I think he absolutely identified which mismatches he wanted and executed on those all night, every time, and didn't let up.
39-14, the final score. If you want to join in the conversation, we are streaming on Facebook Live and on YouTube. You can leave comments on a Baylor Athletics Facebook Live or on YouTube, or you can tweet us with the hashtag BUFanForum. A few numbers. If you just looked at total yards, it's not dramatic there. 366 Texas Tech, 341 for Baylor. Baylor had 324 yards through the air. Blake Shapen battled tonight, certainly, for Baylor. Baron Morton was 19 of 26 for 180 yards, 3 touchdowns and interception. You had hoped coming into the game that Baylor's defense could slow down the running game enough that you could put more of the weight of trying to win this football game on Baron Morton's shoulders. That wasn't the case. In fact, I'm 19 to 26. When I looked up his numbers after the game, Elliot, I might have thought it was more like 16 to 19 or something like that. He didn't have to throw a lot, and that certainly with a backup quarterback who Baylor picked off 3 times last year, that certainly played into Texas Tech's favor. But with the job their defense did, that obviously was the story of the game. They held Baylor, as Elliot mentioned tonight, to 17 yards on 30 carries, even adjusted, taking the sacks out. You're talking about 30 attempts, 37 yards, a little over a run, so a little over a yard per run. So they were dominant there, and then just the numbers. They had 4 sacks.
Run down.
Here we go.
Run down the numbers.
Yeah, they had 61 tackles, 39 of them solo, 4 sacks. 11 tackles for loss, 4 pass breakups, 3 quarterback hurries, and 4 forced fumbles. I mean, that is dominant. And, as we look at this team now, Elliot, 6 games into the season, I see those numbers, and obviously the offensive line has had its struggles this year, and not to deflate any suspense that might be looming for Coffey as for closers, but when we look at the offensive line and kind of that doghouse spot again, that has been a group that has really struggled this year, other than in spurts. And I wonder. When we see the running game, Richard Reese, Dominic Richardson have had success in their careers at Baylor and at Oklahoma State in the case of Richardson. Blake Shapen has been a warrior, but that's almost like it just feels like right now that offensive line has been the leak. There's been the leak in the floor that eventually just kind of spreads, and you can't walk across it. Right, it's going to cave in, and that seems to me that area that you wonder what we could see if it was even just a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is that I always throw this out there. I've played enough bad football games, and it's on film for you to go and watch it, right? It's not like my career was just painted with, the perfect picture of exactly how you should play, linebacker or special teams or whatever it was. But one thing coaches always told me is like, irregardless of what they say to me, you are what you put on film. And so whatever you're putting on film is who you are as a player. And so I would encourage folks, I may be a tough game to go back and rewatch, but rather than voice my opinions on our offensive line, I would tell you just go back and watch the film, right? And that will tell the story of how things went. And I think it makes it very clear that that is a unit within this football team that's got to improve a lot in order for us to have any kind of real success. We lean heavily on our offense, on our offensive line. I mean, this offense's theme is reliable, violent offense, RVO, right? Reliable means consistent. Violent means you win at the point of attack, right? If we put on the film and we see what we typically associate with that RVO, then I think the numbers will support that. I don't think if we were to hop on film and look at that, we would see that represented tonight.
It's been a struggle. I don't. There's some talent. There's some talent there. There's some experience there. But for whatever reason, I mean, maybe as much as any place on the football field, right? Maybe as much as any place in all of sports. Those 5 guys on the offensive line are a unit as much as any position group. I mean, it really is like the five guys on the floor on a basketball team, right? In some way, they so reliant on one another, and there's talent there. There's some skill. There's some size. There's some strength. But for whatever reason, it's only been in spurts that we've seen it come together.
Yeah, the unit hasn't meshed yet, and I think that's one of the biggest things about particularly this offensive line is because they ask so much of you. You have so many decisions to make pre-snap. And as a matter of fact, not only do you have to make the right decision, but a lot of times without communicating to the guy next to you, you have to make the same decision. Because if you don't, it creates gaps and it creates, run lanes for the defense to really, hit. And so it was tough, man. We knew if you looked at what they did in the second half against U of H last week, they shut them out in the second half. They scored 21 points on them. But what they realized halfway through that U of H game is that they need to run a lot of different looks up front, right? They wanted to run games. They would do a 4-man rush. They're going to show a lot of different stunts, which we've talked about this in years past, but essentially what it means is instead of you going straight ahead, sometimes you have some type of combination that you do with the guy next to you. So maybe instead of you going straight ahead, you take 1 step forward and then go inside, and he takes 1 step forward and goes outside, right, to confuse the offensive line. They put it on film, and they ran it again. And they ran it, and they ran it, and they ran it. And it's got to get to a point where when you know it's coming, you can stop it, and we just weren't able to do that effectively tonight.
39-14, the final score. The Bears fall to 1-2 in Big 12 play as Texas Tech improves to 2-1. A few additional numbers in this game. Baylor 324 yards through the air, 180 for Texas Tech, but they were dominant on the ground, 186 yards to 17. Penalties. Baylor kept it clean tonight, just 1 penalty for 9 yards. Tech had 4 for 40. Tech was effective on 3rd and 4th down there, 10 for 18 on 3rd down, 1 of 2 on 4th down. So about essentially 11 out of 18 drives. They were 11 out of 18 3rd down and 4th down opportunities they converted. Baylor, though, 4 of 15 on 3rd down and 1 of 6 on 4th down. So they had opportunities to extend drives, went for it, really I think as much as we've seen all year on 4th down, but were unable to convert and keep the drives going. In some cases, I think that was pressure in the backfield that we saw almost immediately, and in other cases, maybe just that lack of collaboration. But Baylor had some opportunities, but couldn't keep the drives going this evening. Some players who stood out for Baylor: Blake Shapen, 22 of 38 for 324 yards and a touchdown. Monterey Baldwin, another 100-yard game, 5 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown. On defense, Matt Jones led the way with 8 tackles, including 1 for loss. Devin Bobby active tonight as well. He finished with 8 tackles, 5 solo, and a pass breakup. If you want to join in the conversation, you can go on Facebook Live, Baylor Athletics Facebook Live, or on our YouTube feed. You can leave comments there, or hashtag BUFanForum. Take a time out and come back with Rewind from McLean Stadium. Again, the final tonight, Texas Tech 39, Baylor 14. This is the Baylor Sports Media Network.
Jeff Haas Mazda and the Baylor Bears both know what it takes to be number.
What do you want, just a touchdown?
Determination. Come
touchdowns.
Number 1 Mazda dealer in Texas, Jeff Haas Mazda, is inviting all fans listening to visit us for hard-hitting deals on every new Mazda in stock, with fresh inventory hitting the ground daily. And every new Mazda comes with our
Did I lose y'all?
plan. Plus, your trade is now worth more than ever. We're buying all makes and models. Get our best cash offer in minutes. Jeff Haas.
Oh, I didn't hear anything. I thought I lost y'all.
We have our little mute on.
We turn off mute just because I think of the
Premier
video
ER
feed.
and urgent care.
Oh, okay.
Convenience of urgent care with
Are you doing highlights here?
all
yes.
under
How
one
about,
roof. At every visit,
how
be
about the
seen by
touchdown?
ER trained staff with
Okay, that'll work. That's what I figured. That's all.
Yeah,
that's
we're
all I
on-
was wanted to ask
We're
you.
on the same
for the
page.
appropriate level
All right, yeah, we'll just do the touchdown.
Yeah.
insurance.
All right, sounds good, bud.
Premier
Appreciate it,
ER
Aaron.
and Urgent Care has 4 convenient locations serving Texas: San Marcos, Temple, Waco, and Woodway. To learn more, visit www.premier.care.
For a limited time, get high-performance, ultra-reliable internet from Astound Broadband, starting as low as $25 per month. And now we have mobile, too. Visit astound.com to order the #1 rated internet. Create the perfect plan with fast speeds to meet all your needs, plus get a 2-year price lock when you upgrade to award-winning gig internet. No contracts, no hidden monthly fees, and no data caps. Switch today. Head to astound.com or call 1-800-4ASTOUND. Restrictions apply. See website for details.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
We're breaking down today's game on the Fan Forum. To join in the conversation, tweet your thoughts with hashtag #BUFanForum or leave your comments on the YouTube or Facebook live streams. Now, back to Derek and Elliot.
Bears fall tonight to Texas Tech, 39-14. Texas Tech jumping out to a 17-3 halftime lead. Bears got it going offensively late a little bit, but too little too late in this one. As the Red Raiders exit with the win, they pulled within 1 game of Baylor in the all-time series. Baylor had won the last 2 against the Red Raiders. 41 wins for Baylor, 40 losses, and a tie in a very close series all time. And, we were talking off the air. I think that's part of what's disappointing tonight, too, about tonight's game. There have been a lot of very close games in this series. Now, last year wasn't, right? Baylor marched into Lubbock and smoked them, and they kind of returned the favor this season, coming into Waco and doing the same thing. But this has been a series that even in years in which one team was clearly better than the other, it tended to be a close game for whatever reason, whether that was when Baylor was head and shoulders ahead of them, but Patrick Mahomes could make things interesting, or whether that was sometimes when Baylor wasn't as good, or when Baylor was on the upswing, its ascendance, when the late Mike Leach was coaching Texas Tech, but Baylor would find a way to make it close, make it interesting. But last year, Baylor with a 45-17 win there, and then tonight they win 39-14.
Yeah, there was never really like a talent gap that was like big enough between Tech and Baylor for something like this to typically play out. And I don't know that necessarily was the case today. I don't know. I mean, there were so many things that happened over in the game that I don't know if we could even put a finger on exactly kind of how things played out the way that they did. But, yeah, it's always been a close game. I mean, I pulled up, the times that I played, and it was always, a touchdown. It was about a touchdown that we either won or lost by. I think we actually dropped 60 on in my senior year or something like that. It was a pretty big game in 2011. But it's always fairly close. And – I think that's why it's tough. Like, looking at it, there's a couple things that I look at, right? Because you look at, like, total yardage. They only outgained us by about 25 yards. We had 324 through the air, and we know that we only had 17 rushing yards. Now, there's a couple things that really stand out to me. Third down, they went 10-18. We went 4-15, right? Fourth down, they went 1 for 2. We went 1 and 6, right? We both ran 68 plays. We both averaged 5 yards per play. And we actually averaged more yards per completion than they did. Now, the thing that killed us is they averaged 4.4 yards a rush. We averaged 0.6. But the other thing that I wanted to take a look at is yardage is great, but we didn't put points up. So what I wanted to look at is, like, well, how did that happen? And so if you look at it, of our 300-plus yards of offense, 256 of those yards came on 8 plays.
Monterey Baldwin's long catches. You had a pass, I think, to Dominic Richardson. There was one to Jordan Neighbors.
Jordan Neighbors, Dom Richardson, right? Monterey Baldwin. Dawson Pendergrass had that screen.
Yeah.
Right? Armani Winfield got in there with the 15-yarder, and then, of course, the long one to Monterey, and then there's one more, or two more to Monterey. But all big plays, only one of which led to a score.
And if you don't score off those big plays the way the game went tonight,
right,
it just felt like, you pretty much had to take advantage of that to hit pay dirt.
Exactly. And so what's tough about that is it's great to cover yardage, but you've got to convert, number one. And then number two, when you have big plays, but you don't do the little things right, you get stopped in the red zone and you don't make it there at all. Mm-hmm. And that's what we ran into is that, okay, clearly we can at times make big plays, right? I think that goes without saying. We've made big plays every week, but we haven't been able to piece together entire drives. I mean, how many times do you see us marching down into the red zone and things just fall apart?
Which used to be our strength. That was when we were at our best last year. I mean, I would talk about red zone Jeff Grimes, right? That's when we were at our most creative and at our best. It was sometimes getting there last year that was the problem.
Yeah.
And you look at those drives that you're talking about, Elliot. As we do our rewind segment, we're going to talk about some of these drives. Baylor turned it over on downs 5 times tonight, and you look at those drives. It ended a 7-play drive, a 10-play drive, a 10-play 28-yard drive, which is not a combination you see a ton. Hey, 7 plays.
How does that happen?
I don't know. I don't even know that I recall that one right now. 7 plays, 49 yards, 10 plays, 56 yards, and then 4 plays, 7 yards. I mean, you're talking about 7, 10, 4, 7, 10, 4 plays on drives where you had some momentum. You were able to move the ball somewhat, but you couldn't finish. And meanwhile, Texas Tech in the first half had a couple of touchdown drives early, and they set the tone early, right? They scored those 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and honestly, for the middle of the game, Baylor did second and third quarters. Baylor had opportunities. As we're talking about all those drives, turnovers on downs, they're not just numbers, right? Those are drives in which, at that point, it was a 2-score game or a 3-score game when Baylor had opportunities to climb right back in it and just couldn't take advantage. And then after that touchdown pass to Monterey Baldwin, felt like that kind of woke Texas Tech's offense back up again a little bit, and then they poured it on a little bit in the fourth quarter. But they started strong, 14 points there in the first quarter. Actually, between the first quarter, about the first minute and a half of the second quarter. And then they closed it strong, but there were opportunities in between, but that was enough for Texas Tech in this ball game. In fact, let's take a look at the scoring. Texas Tech, very first drive, went 11 plays, 75 yards. It was a touchdown to Coy Aiken from Baron Morton. That got him started off strong. Baylor turned the ball over on downs. Texas Tech got it back. Another long drive, 7 plays, 59 yards. 2 minutes in to the second quarter, they found Baylor Cup for a 16-yard touchdown, made it 14-0. Baylor had to settle for a field goal on the subsequent drive, which made it 14-3. And then Texas Tech took advantage of a Baylor fumble for a short 4-play, 7-yard drive to cash in another field goal to take a 17-3 lead at intermission. Third quarter was frustrating because Baylor got the ball, wasn't able to move it to start the third quarter. Neither team scored, but then again, once Texas Tech got going again, they found Baylor Cup again for an 18-yard touchdown. The tight end took it down the left sideline wide open, and that made it 24-3. Baylor looked like they were maybe trying to make it interesting again like they did last week, though, as Blake Shapen found finally that big play action for the Bears as he hit Monterey Baldwin for this 71-yard touchdown.
Play 4th down and 5. Shapen passes. Baldwin's got it. He's going to score. Got it over the defensive back. Monterey Baldwin will trot into the end zone. On 4th down and 5, 71 yards for the Baylor touchdown.
Yeah, and 4th down add to that, the 2-point conversion made it 24-11, but that would be as close as Baylor would get. Taj Brooks, an 18-yard touchdown run. Baron Morton, a 10-yard run as well, sandwiched around an Isaiah Hankins field goal. That made it 39-14. So really the big highlight in the game was that 4th down pass to Monterey Baldwin. Again, he had another good game tonight for the Bears. 5 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown. I know when as we're getting ready to come on the air here on the Fan Forum, Elliot, we're kind of listening to Coach Aranda's conversation. We're talking through some things. Did you see Monterey Baldwin's comment after the game to the media, asking him about the team 6 games in? And Monterey Baldwin said, and this is something that, we can read into what he says, we can analyze it, but here's what he said. He said that with it being the 6th game of the season, I feel like some people are just here for the ride. I really don't know why, but we have some growing up to do. So that's Monterey Baldwin's comment to the media after the game. I think we read that for what it is, right? We could pick it apart, but the fact of the matter is only he knows for sure, but he said what he said, so obviously something boiled to the point that he felt the need to say that, in his post-game press conference.
Yeah. Derek, my theme of the night is put on the film and tell me what you see. That is because I think Monterey probably feels the same way. He's in those meetings. He's in practice, right? We keep hearing about how great of weeks we're having at practice, but we know that what we're seeing on Saturday isn't good enough to win in the Big 12 week in and week out. And we hadn't seen that in a while, right? We've had games that we've lost, but even last year during the skid, I mean, we had a team that beat Michigan in the in the playoffs last week and played in a national championship that was scrambling for their life to kick a field goal to eke out a win as time was expiring. Right?
Yeah.
So
most of except for Kansas State last year, the losses were all kind of excruciating.
They were all, which made it even more fun for us. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like last year the record showed the quality of the team. I think that record was probably the darkest timeline of what that talented team could probably handle. And so this year, on the other hand, there are some limitations. There's some things that we haven't overcome, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And so I don't know what needs to change, what needs to be identified as a thing. And here's the thing, right? Like, why aren't we seeing more people on the offensive line? Like, why aren't we rotating more guys in? If we're struggling, let's talk about my senior year. I'm going to throw myself in there again real quick. We dropped 2 big games going into our bye week my senior year. I think it was the 6-game mark too. I think we were 3-3.
It was to A&M and Oklahoma State, right there at the cusp of mid-October into early November.
Cusp of mid-October, early November. We were 3-3. We had lost to Kansas State, we had lost to A&M, and we had lost to Oklahoma State. And I got benched in the bye week.
That's got to sting,
right? Because Coach Bennett looked at me and he goes, "You're not going to play for me if you play like that." Granted, we found out I had a broken bone in my shoulder and a torn labrum, and I was out there fighting for my life.
Sure.
And we just rehabbed it for the rest of the year just to make it manageable enough for me to finish. But you had to do something drastic because the way that I was playing wasn't going to be good enough for that team to win, and that was a team that had a lot of talent. I got benched. I made sure that entire bye week, when I was benched, I did not make a single mistake. I was in the film room. I was watching film with the coaches. I got into practice early. I stayed at practice late. I was getting up every day at 6 a.m. and going to the training room to get my shoulder worked on, right? I was doing all the things that I knew I needed to do because I got benched, and that was not a good thing. But I needed to be benched, right? Because you had to pull me out of there because I was a liability at that point. Now, we all know what happens after that. Robert goes on a tear. The team really comes together, and we win 6 straight, right? We win our first bowl game in, 15 years or something like that. But for me, like, when we see people that aren't performing the way that we want to, like, I'm a living example of, like, maybe you got to pull them out of the game, put somebody else in that maybe is better primed for the situation. And if the unit isn't working, like, try some more bodies. There's a whole lot of people in jerseys on the sideline. Like, let's find a mix of the guys that works. And so
well, and to your point on that, Elliot, I think you were talking about a stretch in which the season had showed a lot of promise, and you're trying to make sure they were making some changes, whether you're just looking for accountability or just for more productivity or both. I think that's a point where you were looking to get the season back on track. I think now here you're trying to get the season even on track just a little bit outside of that big fourth quarter. And I don't know what they've got. Obviously, they're playing the players that they think give them the best chance to win, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and I say that's not me saying anything between the lines. Coaches want to win. Right. They want to win. They want to put the players out there who give them the best chance. But you do wonder if maybe if you want to see some of these younger guys, give them a chance if those reps are valuable, if they can improve quickly, if it's a better fit. Because it's that cliche. In basketball, you're not trying to necessarily put your 5 best players, your best 5 on your best 5 players. You're trying to put your best 5 out there. Trying to find that right combination of 5 to win, and maybe that's out there still. We don't know that.
I mean, you could talk about Lou Williams, the 6th player of the century, right? he was one of the greatest scorers in NBA history and always came off the bench.
Right.
Because just the way that he played the game didn't necessarily fit in for him. I don't know if his defense wasn't good enough or what it was, but you just got to find the unit that works. And so I'm not directly saying that you need to pull certain people off and mix and match. But what I'm saying is, like, if the unit isn't doing or operating the way that you want it to, like, try some different things to maybe mix it up.
Well, you know, I'll say this. I think on this program, we very rarely talk about, making, changes in terms of who's out there on the field. That's not really our wheelhouse. But I think what you're saying is oftentimes the bye week. We're heading into a bye week now. That's kind of prime position to make that. You'll see lots of teams do that, right? You make a change. Maybe you don't announce it, but you make a change and you give a player more reps during those 2 weeks with the starters.
It happens behind closed doors, and it happens behind the scenes, and it's nothing that ever has to hit the circuit or social media or even make it to the Monday morning presser, right?
Yeah.
These are all things that you can handle in-house, but it's going in, and here's my thing. The destination is to win a game. Clearly, we're off that destination right now, right? And that's okay. What needs to happen is we need to identify what it is that isn't working. Take the next couple weeks working on that. Being open and honest and accepting that we have limitations and figuring out what we do best and positioning ourselves to excel at what we do best, whatever that might be. That's what I hope this next couple weeks looks like.
39-14, the final tonight. Texas Tech with the win over the Bears. The Bears heading into a bye week, their lone bye of the season, and then it's off to Cincinnati on the 21st of October. You want to join in the conversation, hashtag BUFanForum on Twitter, or you can comment on the YouTube stream or on the Facebook live feed as well. We'll take a look at some of those here in just a moment. As we head into the break, Elliot, I'll say, it's tough talking about a loss tonight. We're not the Miami post-game show.
We're not.
By the way,
how are they going to talk about that?
Miami took Baylor 1999 off the hook tonight because Miami ran the football when they could have taken a knee. Georgia Tech recovered a fumble, and they scored a touchdown with 1 second left to knock off Miami. So I hope that's the example from here on out. I hope that's the example. If there's anything
sacrificial lamb.
It's like when Dan Orlovsky ran out the back of the end zone, and anytime someone else does, he said, "Yes, I'm off the hook."
Finally, no, Dan, you're still it.
Yeah, you're still it. Well, hopefully Miami can assume that mantle from here on out. We'll take a look at comments when we come back after this from McLean Stadium. 39-14, the final score here at McLean. Back after this on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
Texas Golf Carts has been providing sales, service, and leasing to Central Texas since 1993. We offer many different parts and accessories from various manufacturers and are the only authorized Yamaha and Club Car dealer in Central Texas. Visit our new location off Highway 6 in Waco or call us at 848-5991 and let us know what you are looking for, and we'll provide the expertise in meeting and achieving your desires and specifications. We are also proud supporters of the Baylor Bears. Sick 'em, Bears!
No matter which road you take, the Toyota Tundra is the perfect way to navigate it. On your path, you're your own boss and set your own hours.
Look at that sunrise.
You may find yourself in some pretty remote places.
Whoa, that view. It's amazing.
Or in places where pastimes become stories that become legends.
I got one. It's a keeper. Hey, get a picture. No one's going to believe this.
And each day ends binge-watching stars and dreaming about all the things you'll do the next day.
You know what? I'm catching a bigger fish tomorrow.
Built to follow your path, the Toyota Tundra. This Texan knows how to sick 'em. Toyota is a proud partner of Baylor Athletics. Visit your local Toyota dealer or Toyota.com to check out the rugged Tundra today. Toyota, let's go places. See packages and options at Toyota.com for feature availability.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You're listening to Baylor Football on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
Tough night tonight for the Bears. They fall 39-14 to Texas Tech. Baylor 1-2 in Big 12 play. The Red Raiders improved to 2-1. Yeah, it's just a one-game difference, but we talked about it before the game today on the Baylor Alumni Tailgate Show. Felt like this was a swing game, and Texas Tech took that positive swing up, if you will, the climbing up the ladder. It's just a one-game difference, but you know, it feels different. 1-2 feels a whole lot different than 2-1, and 2-4 feels a whole lot different than 3-3. And this game was an opportunity for the Bears to take that step forward after last week's win over UCF, the comeback win, but unfortunately unable to do so tonight. Appreciate being with us here on the Baylor Sports Media Network. Appreciate our producer Aaron Sexton, our flagship station ESPN Central Texas, everyone watching in on our Facebook live stream and on YouTube as well. And you know, Elliot, we've seen some comments on here asking about the O-line, and obviously the O-line and the D-line struggled tonight. That's one thing that Coach Aranda said in the postgame interview with J-Mo and JJ a little bit earlier, that they got beat on both sides. And so you see Bailey asking about and saying, how did we get here? You know, I think there's some talent on the defensive line. I mean, there's talent we recognize on the defensive line in particular, right? When you're talking about T.J. Franklin and Gabe Hall, unfortunately, the production hasn't been there like we had hoped it would be. I think coming into the season, we thought that might be the area that led the defense, and instead, I think you'd have to say it's been the young secondary that's flashed the most, or even been the steadiest at times. But that's been disappointing to see those guys not take the step forward that I think we thought they were maybe primed to make.
Real quick, secondary. You didn't give Caden Jenkins a shout-out. He got another pick.
Yes.
He got another pick. So secondary is –
You're right.
Caden is putting his foot out there and playing some good football. Guys, offensive and defensive line are the hardest positions to recruit in the country. Why do you think the SEC has been so good? Why do you think the Big Ten has been so good? Because they consistently have dominant offensive and defensive lines. And so it's not like Baylor's the only program in the country right now that is struggling with linemen. Every team in the country is fighting to get the best linemen. And so that is forever going to be a struggle. I think that's part of the reason why historically we've run a spread offense. I think we talked a lot about that, is that this is an offense that's built for a certain type of offensive line, and it takes a while to build up an entire line of those guys. And so we're working, and some of them are really young. I mean, our right guard is a redshirt freshman, right? You got a younger Barrington that's out there playing, right tackle. And so if you look across the line, you've got some younger guys out there. And so it's really tough to piece it together. And so I think that's probably the undertone here. It's really, really tough, not only to get the guys, to get them comfortable, but then to have them in a pretty tough scheme too. It's kind of a all-encompassing thing that we're struggling with.
Yeah, and you know, there's been flashes, because what you want to start seeing is that consistent improvement, right? You're 6 games into the season now, which is halfway through the regular season. You want to see that improvement, and it's been there in flashes. At times we've seen it. I think Matt Jones, in a lot of ways, at times, he's another veteran coming into the year defensively. He's been a guy who we've seen flash in a lot of positive ways over the course of this season. You'd like to see some of the other guys as well. Yeah,
right. I mean, big opportunity here. You know, this is a season that's not going the way that we expected to, or the way that we wanted it to. And, there's a reason why we practice and suit up and play every Saturday, because there's an opportunity to turn things around at every turn. And so if you look at the rest of the schedule going out here, I mean, I think we knew that this was potentially going to be a tricky game, just because, Joey's got 11 guys off of our former Baylor staff that's on his tech staff with him, right? So they know the personnel, they know the play calls, they know the stadium. They probably feel more comfortable playing here in Waco than they do in Lubbock right now, because all the games they've collectively coached.
A lot of guys there, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think there was a lot of things that were, stacked against us in this game, and I think that they, had us pretty good and measured up. But there's a lot of football left to be played, and there's a lot of teams. We've got 2 of them that are new additions to the conference that aren't having that hot of a start. So we have chances to go out there and get some wins.
Mm-hmm.
We get a bye week to kind of recoup, but at the end of the day, we need to win 6 football games. So look at the last 6 and look at 4 of them, and let's find 4 to go out and win.
Yeah, next 2 are going to be big in that regard.
They are going to be very big, and you've got some teams, like I said, we are not the only team in this conference that's struggling this year. So
No.
I know that we like to think that we're the only ones that are experiencing what we're experiencing, but like you said earlier, at least for not Miami, at least we would have taken a knee and walked away with the win.
Well, and let's talk about that for just a moment. Elsewhere in the Big 12, I should say, because you're right. I think I'm glad someone else can be the lesson that everyone else learns from. That's just very bizarre, because 24 years ago, some team, we won't mention who it is, showed you that the stove is hot, right? Don't touch the stove. The stove is hot. And for the most part, I think teams haven't touched the stove. But my University of Miami, the U tonight, decided that they were going to touch the stove. They were going to take this
L.
Yeah. And they touched the stove, and it did not go well for them. You mentioned the struggles in the Big 12. I mean, Kansas State yesterday losing to Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
That's a team that I had pegged playing in Arlington, and they may still, but that was an unexpected loss in Stillwater. TCU just up and down this year. They lose to Iowa State tonight. Iowa State 2-1 in Big 12 play.
How about that?
After those first couple of games, I don't know that I would have thought they would have won many more than 2 games in the Big 12. Well, let me put it this way. After everything they dealt with this past off season,
right.
I guess it galvanized them, because I really thought they were headed for a real downer of a year. And while they may, we're only halfway through. They are at 3-3. TCU is at 3-3 as well with a 27-14 loss. UCF did not fare well for them in Lawrence tonight, 51-22. They lose to Kansas, and then Texas loses to Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout in Dallas, as Oklahoma scores with 15 seconds left to win that game by a score of 34-30. So you're kind of starting to see a little bit of that separation, if you will, in the Big 12, in that you've got Oklahoma, who now is undefeated, and they are sitting up top. West Virginia also undefeated, although the Sooners have played one more game. Then the teams that are 2-1 are Texas, Kansas, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. Oklahoma State, BYU, and Kansas are 1-1. 1-2, you have Baylor and TCU. And then the teams without a win yet are Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. Cincinnati and Houston are 2 of your next 4 opponents.
Yep.
So those are going to be big games to try to find a way to win. October, you hoped it would get off to a good start, just like September ended well, because this is an important month for Baylor to get where it wants to be, but obviously didn't start off well this evening. Another comment someone mentioned on here that I think people are wondering about a little bit. Someone asked about NIL, and I think that the answer that I could say is there's only so much you and I know about it. It's not a lot. We don't know facts, and we don't know a lot of figures, I should say. We don't know figures and what's what. I do know that we've heard some people who are on that NIL collective who are some pretty sharp businessmen. The approach that they're doing is one that they're comfortable in, and I think you could say, Baylor's done some asks, right? You have the GXG ask. You might hear it on the PA readers, and you've heard them mention it at some events. But have you noticed there's not a big campaign to go out and ask for money? There's not some massive raise money for NIL campaign. Have you noticed that, Elliot?
Yeah, I mean, we just raised, 1.6 or 1.7 in the Give Light campaign, so
1 billion. Well,
so we have to be a little bit, but
are universities shy about asking for money?
No.
They're not shy.
They're
are they
not.
shy at any point in asking for money?
I don't think so.
The fact that Baylor is not asking in mass should tell you that there's that we're at a level commensurate with other universities in this. I mean, you can always do better, right? We're not trying to just, Baylor's not trying to be average in something like that, but people wonder about that. And the answer is...
I don't think we're behind in NIL at all. Now, I think that's something that we're still figuring out because it just
Everyone
started
is.
2 years ago,
Yes,
right?
everyone is.
Because I think, if you look at what A&M did 2 years ago, A&M threw the bag and a half at every player that would sniff in their direction, and half of those guys aren't even in College Station anymore. And so it's not like just because you throw more money at people, you're going to get better talent. Now, I do think from a talent evaluation standpoint, as well as the type of kids that are going to come and play school or come play football here in Waco, it takes some time to figure out because it's going to be a little bit different than maybe kids that go to other schools because of the smaller university location, right? The religious affiliation of the institution, right? There's just things about Baylor that are a little bit unique when it comes to recruiting. But at the end of the day, NIL, I think, is a good thing, too, and I think that's something that we're working on.
And again, as I say that, don't take that to mean if you want to give to NIL that
that's
Baylor
what I'm telling you. I was about to say, at the end of the day, Derek, I was like, Give to the NIL collective.
Yeah, BaylorBears.com/GXG, I believe, is the web address. GXG stands for green and gold, if people wondered about that. But I guess I'm just saying, I think sometimes people wonder, well, how are we faring in this? Is Baylor competing in this? You don't hear a lot, and sometimes rumors start. People kind of wonder. Well, I think the answer is from people who are on that collective is that, where we are now isn't where we're going to be in the future, but they are doing things at a level that is competitive, and they can build on that in the future as well. 39-14, the final in this one. Texas Tech with the victory. We have Coffey is for closers coming up next as we pick the top performers in the game. We'll also look for a individual area to put in the doghouse. That is coming up straight ahead. We're at McLean Stadium. This is the Postgame Fan Forum on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
For a limited time, get high-performance, ultra-reliable internet from Astound Broadband, starting as low as $25 per month. And now we have mobile, too. Visit astound.com to order the #1 rated internet. Create the perfect plan with fast speeds to meet all your needs. Plus, get a 2-year price lock when you upgrade to award-winning gig internet. No contracts, no hidden monthly fees, and no data caps. Switch today. Head to astound.com or call 1-800-4ASTOUND. Restrictions apply. See website for details.
Kids can now join the Baylor Cup Club, presented by Green Eye Associates, the official kids club of Baylor Athletics. Fans 12 and under can register for the low cost of $25 and gain exclusive benefits and access to Baylor Athletics events. Members receive free admission to select events, exclusive giveaway access, and their own membership package. To register your Cub, please visit BaylorBears.com/Cub Club. Sign your Cub up today and sick 'em Bears.
It's that time of year, and these deals are getting spooky good. This month at Allen Samuels in Waco during Jeep Adventure Days, you can get 10% off MSRP on all trim levels on all new Jeep Compasses, Gladiators, Renegades, and on the all-new Grand Cherokees except Laredos. You heard that right, 10% off MSRP. We've got a great selection of inventory to choose from, and we're making big deals. Hurry in. These won't last long. Come see what Allen Samuels in Waco can offer you and find the Jeep that fits your lifestyle.
Come see why Green Eye Associates is voted best in Waco year after year. Enjoy exceptional service and care from Dr. Leanne Green alongside her dedicated optometrist and staff. Receive trustworthy insights on your eye health. Enjoy the impressive variety of contacts and eyewear, and work with the most experienced optical team in Waco. Don't miss the new state-of-the-art dry eye therapies that rejuvenate the eyes and face with safe, non-invasive treatments to restore comfort and quality of life. Green Eye Associates, official optometrist of Baylor Athletics.
It's time for Coffee is for Closers. The car, the steak knives, the doghouse. Tweet your winners with hashtag BUFanForum or comment on YouTube or Facebook Live.
Back here at McLean Stadium, tough one tonight. The Bears fall 39-14 to Texas Tech. As we dive into Coffees for Closers, a few numbers. The player of the game certainly this evening was Red Raider running back Taj Brooks, 31 carries, 170 yards and a touchdown, 5.5 yards per carry. He was really the performer in the ball game. Texas Tech's defense, we're going to give you some numbers on them in just a moment. But between Brooks and the Texas Tech defense, those were two areas that really never let Baylor get into the game like they wanted to be. Blake Shapen, a nice night, 22 of 38, 324 yards and a touchdown. Nice night statistically. He was running for his life quite a bit and was sacked 4 times. Baylor couldn't get the running game going, 30 carries for 17 yards. Monterey Baldwin had 5 catches for 126 yards as a touchdown. The defensive numbers, and in my mind, Elliot, the numbers of the game this evening. Texas Tech defensively had 11 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 4 fumble recoveries, and 3 quarterback hurries. Your offense can't get into a rhythm. You can't get into the tempo when you can't protect them, and that was really the case tonight. I think we thought we might see more tempo this evening, but it never really got going, and the Baylor offense, never really was able to string a long drive together because Texas Tech, you look at those numbers defensively, on just about every Baylor drive, there's a play for loss that puts Baylor behind the change, which, as we've talked about, they're not really set up as well this season so far to play behind the chains.
Yeah, we just couldn't run our base offense. Right, you know what we want to run, you know how we want to run it, and we couldn't do it. Whereas I would say that this offense is really built to rip off 3.5 yards a carry. That's what we're really looking for, right? 3.5 yards a carry times 3, that's a first down every time, right? If we can do that, then we're fine. The issue is that we're averaging a half a yard a carry. And so just the base offense that we wanted to run broke down. Now, Coach Aranda talked about it on the post game as well. He said, hey, we just couldn't block that outside linebacker, right? Couldn't block that defensive end. Just kept coming off the edge. And so by not picking on anybody in particular, just saying we had a hard time covering this. And because of that, everything else kind of fell by the wayside.
Well, let's take a look now at Coffey is for closers. Pick the top performers again from the movie Glengarry, Glenn Ross. We rip that off just a little bit in all the best ways. We take a look at which player we would give the Cadillac Eldorado, the steak knives, and then where to put in the doghouse. Earlier in the show, I mentioned which area I would put in the doghouse, but let's take a look at the positives first here. Elliot, I can start here with the Eldorado, if that sounds good. Yeah. I would go with Monterey.
Come on,
this week. I would go with Monterey.
He showed up again, and he's upset, right? Because he knows how hard he's playing. He knows that, and I think he knows what it takes to be a successful football team. And I know he's given his heart and his soul, and I think he may not be feeling that or seeing that. Now, here's the other thing that I do want to say: there's so many people out there that are playing their hearts out, that are playing as hard as they possibly can. I think about Blake throwing his body out there, trying to put people in position. There's so many other players that I think are really going out there through a really difficult season and playing hard every snap. And I think it's important to highlight those guys as well, because I know we spent a lot of time. We're pretty frustrated about the situation right now. And I think this show has maybe reflected that more than some other shows that we've been on here in the past. But there are a lot of guys and there's a lot of folks, on the coaching staff, on the support staff that are really working hard to try to get things going, and it's just not falling in our favor. And so I wanted to take a second just to give a nod to all those people that are really working, tooth and nail to try to get everything going, because eventually it makes a turn. Now, that being said, my Eldorado goes to Monterey too, just because his productivity, you're starting to see him pop more and more. Those deep passes are consistent. Nobody's catching him. We finally caught him. I told you in the pregame he was finally going to catch one in stride and take it to the house, and he had a 71-yarder today.
He did.
And so
and you did.
Of all the things that I called, that's the one thing I got right.
Well, it's a good one. It's a good one. I like it. 71-yard touchdown for Monterey Baldwin. Again, another 100-plus yard game for him. As far as the steak knives, Elliot, I'm going to go defense. I think, you look at the 39-14 final score, and it was not the defense's best night. But, again, there were moments. You see flashes from a lot of these younger guys and some of the veterans as well. And I was going to split the steak knives personally for me, Elliot, between Matt Jones and Devin Bobby. They were active tonight. They were all over the field. Both of them had 8 total tackles. Each of them had 5 solo tackles. Bobby a pass breakup, Jones a tackle for loss. And I just thought they were active. They were competitive out there and noticeable in a good way. And you'd still just like to see it all come together for this team. And I don't know what all coming together looks like, but I guess I would just say that means them playing to the best of their ability in phases where we see improvement, because there's some young guys on the defense that I continue to like what they do out there. I think Bobby had his best game potentially tonight. Tevin Williams has been active. There were mistakes out there, certainly, but Caden Jenkins being the most obvious example. There are young guys out there who look like they could play in this league and be starters defensively.
You're doing that thing where you're taking a lot of names at once.
That's true. I said specifically Jones and Bobby.
So you said Jones and Bobby.
Yeah.
All right. I'll give you Jones and Bobby. Like I said, I was impressed with Matt Jones once again. It just felt like we really struggled at the second level of taking the running backs down, right? And I felt like anytime Matt Jones was in there, people dropped, which was refreshing to see. I thought Devin Bobby, that's a name that you haven't heard a ton of this season, but I thought he was all over the place, like you said, just active. I'm going to give it to Caden Jenkins just because creating turnovers, right, that could have been an inflection point for us in the game. He goes in there, he gets the interception, we march it back down, we don't score any points. But once again, another Caden Jenkins turnover gives us a chance to have a really impressive fourth-quarter comeback. And so I'm looking for somebody out there that pops on film, that makes plays, that puts us in position, to win football games when we're down. He keeps finding a way to put his hand or keeps finding a way to turn the ball over.
He does.
Really impressive.
I mean, he's playing his way to essentially probably being the defense. Like if Baylor gave out a Defensive Player of the Year award,
right?
It's looking like it would be him. And you're talking about a guy who is a true freshman, very impressive. Now for the doghouse, Elliot. I mean, I said that earlier that it was, for me, the offensive line tonight. And, again, you look at the numbers in this when we give you the Texas Tech defensive numbers earlier, 11 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, the breakups, the hurries. And Baylor's running game was never able to get going. 30 carries for 17 yards, a little over half a yard per carry. I mean, you just got to get better in that area. And you painted that picture well talking about what you put on film. And that's an area that what's put on film for this team to get where it wants to be is going to have to improve.
Put on the film. Put on the film. That's all I'll say. Yeah, it's the offensive line. We need them, right, to really, at the point of attack, create run lanes, right, and protect Blake. That's what I really think that we need to see them do, is create those run lanes and protect Blake and be in position. Right, be in position, be violent. That's all I'll say.
I want to see Blake have opportunities to throw with a clean pocket. I mean, he's battled. He got hit a few times tonight. There were a couple times I think we probably would have said he needed to throw the ball away. But even that said, no one's going to bat 1,000 in those situations. But I would just like to see him have a game where he can be more comfortable, stay more upright. Last week was that in part, but you need to string those together. 39-14, the final in this one. That is Coffey is for closers. Baylor heads into the bye week coming up this week ahead. And then 2 weeks from now, a road matchup with the Bearcats of the University of Cincinnati, a new Big 12 arrival. We will come back for our final segment and talk about that when we return from McLean Stadium after this on the Baylor Sports Media Network.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Are you a proud Baylor fan? Do you love prizes? The Baylor Sports app allows fans to track their attendance across athletic events and earn rewards. Baylor Athletics wants to reward the most loyal fans, so register online today at BaylorBoldRewards.com or download the Baylor Sports app straight to your phone. Prizes this year are better than ever, so start earning your points today. And sick 'em Bears.
No matter which road you take, the Toyota Tundra is the perfect way to navigate it. On your path, you're your own boss and set your own hours.
Look at that sunrise.
You may find yourself in some pretty remote places.
Whoa, that view. It's amazing.
Or in places where pastimes become stories that become legends.
I got one. It's a keeper. Hey, get a picture. No one's going to believe this.
And each day ends binge-watching stars and dreaming about all the things you'll do the next day.
You know what? I'm catching a bigger fish tomorrow.
Built to follow your path, the Toyota Tundra. This Texan knows how to sick 'em. Toyota is a proud partner of Baylor Athletics. Visit your local Toyota dealer or Toyota.com to check out the rugged Tundra today. Toyota, let's go places.
They came all the way back.
See packages and options.
It's 21-20 now.
Availability.
Yeah, it didn't take long.
It didn't take long.
After halftime, it didn't take long. I mean,
on the Baylor Sports.
First half was all Arizona, though.
Heading into the bye week, halfway through the regular season now. The Bears unable to build on their comeback win last week over UCF as they fall tonight to the Texas Tech Red Raiders by a score of 39-14. The Bears 2-4 now overall, 1-2 in Big 12 play. Elliot, let's address the bye week and then briefly look at the Cincinnati game.
Yeah.
Obviously, the bye week got to be an opportunity to rest. If there's some guys banged up, maybe you can get a little bit healthy. The coaches mentioned they're going to be going on the road and recruiting and looking for guys. So that's a part of it. You also mentioned, just your own experience, at the bye weeks when there's maybe if you're looking at players on the depth chart that you're looking to make a change to the depth chart somewhere, this is a good time to do that. We don't know that that's the case, but that bye week always presents, whether it's the NFL, whether it's college, presents a good time to do that if that's what they're inclined to do.
Yeah.
More than that, it's just an opportunity. You got to kind of practice without the pressure of a game and find ways to get better. because you've got that Cincinnati matchup coming up, Iowa State, winnable games, but got to play a whole lot better than you did tonight. And they've said the way they've been practicing, but obviously something to play like they want to on Saturday needs to improve.
Yeah, the season goes 1,000 miles an hour. It's really difficult to make big changes on a week-to-week basis when you're trying to get guys healthy, you're trying to review what you did well the week before, you're trying to prepare for the team that's coming in. You have all these other factors, whether you're traveling or life and all that stuff that gets in the way. And so it's really hard during the season to really change much. The bye week is that one opportunity. It's kind of that one, golden key in the middle of the season to kind of reset mentally, emotionally, give guys a break. I'm sure at this point they've been going nonstop since probably the last week of July at this point. It's October. The guys are tired, right? They've got school, they've got, friends and relationships and all this stuff, and they probably just need a second to catch their breath and kind of, rewire and get things going. And so a bye week for me was always really nice. I always got a chance to go home. I'm from Sugar Land, right? So I got to go to Houston for a little bit and just step away, sit on a Saturday, watch college football, do the things that, you enjoy to do without the pressure of having to, go out there and play a tough game on Saturdays. And so, like I said, for me personally, it was always an opportunity to identify the best things about my game and make sure that I brought that to the forefront and identify the things that I was doing poorly and fix them, right? Whether it's, getting healthy or if there's a certain scheme or a certain look or a certain coverage, or maybe I was, poorly, making play calls or wasn't getting guys set up fast enough, or maybe I didn't have a good enough understanding of the way that somebody was trying to scheme us. Whatever it was, you have some time to go there and get those things identified. But really and truly, I just want everybody to have a really restful bye week. Like, that's kind of my thing, is we can talk about how hard they need to work and how you need to grind and get after them. Like, that's a piece of it, but they've been doing that for a long time. So I think they said this is Big 12 Mental Health Week. I hope that the guys really have time to just take a deep breath, take some time to recover mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the ways that you need to in this bye week, and then come back refreshed and recovered and ready to rip it against Cincy.
Cincinnati, you mentioned that matchup. That is 2 weeks from today. On Facebook, Brandon Schur said he's going to be in Cincinnati 2 weeks from now. He hasn't been to a game in person since he was 11 due to living so far away. Now he's concerned. He says, is there any hope of seeing a victory? I mean, obviously there is hope of seeing a victory in Cincinnati here in a couple of weeks. Baylor, oddly enough, is undefeated on the road this year and has struggled more at home, strangely enough. But that's going to be a big matchup for the Bears here in a couple weeks. And, we see how the next couple of weeks go. They obviously have to prepare. We're not going to know everything that happens behind the scenes, but that's a road matchup that you feel good about Baylor going in there, about as good as you can. It's not going to be easy, but it's a matchup you feel like if they get off to a good start and clean up some things, they'll have an opportunity again. Figure out what you did well, what you're able to do well against UCF there for some of the stretches that you did, and see if you can build on those. For whatever reason, Baylor's been, kind of better with its back against the wall on the road, and I realize that's a limited sample size, but the road matchups are a limited sample size in general this season, right? Just 4 road games, and this is the second.
Crazy. Yeah. I mean, this is a Cincy team. If you look, it's a Cincy team that went to a playoff, 2 years ago? Same year that we went to the Sugar Bowl and won the conference. They're kind of in a rebuilding phase right now, too. They're stepping up from, playing against the Navies and the Tulsas of the world to now playing against Big 12 teams on a week-in, week-out basis. And you got to believe that's beating up their players, right? They're not used to playing a little bit tougher games on a weekly basis, and so it's showing right now. They played Oklahoma pretty tough, but they just don't throw the ball all that well. And so I think that's an opportunity for us to go out there, and if we can, like I said, take a deep breath, refresh, kind of get things going, I think we have an opportunity to go out there and do some things against them. And so we had a saying back in the day, clear it out of your mind, clear it. We got to clear this game out. You got to re-up. Get ready to go.
Brandon, we appreciate you making the effort to be there, by the way. I think this team, they'll enjoy having some fans in the stands on the road like we did in Orlando last week. I don't know, maybe make a little trip up to Cincinnati. I don't know if chili or La Rosa's Pizza is his thing, but you and your family make a nice weekend and hopefully a Baylor win up there in the midst of all of that. Baylor's first trip to the University of Cincinnati, their new Big 12 rival. That's 2 weeks away. Again, we should know on Monday what time that game is. But for now, heading into the bye week, Baylor wanted to take a couple of wins in a row into it, but did not play well enough tonight to do so as they fall to Texas Tech, 39-14. Elliot, Any final thoughts? 3 weeks before the next home game here, 2 weeks before the next game. I think we've covered it tonight, but any final thoughts as we wrap it up?
Nope.
All right. 39-14, Texas Tech, the victors this evening. Again, you can stay tuned to BaylorBears.com or BU Football on social media. We should know Monday around lunchtime, give or take, what time that UC matchup will be here in a couple weeks. Appreciate you being with us this evening. Want to say thanks, as always, to our producer, Aaron Sexton, back at our flagship station, ESPN Central Texas, doing great work. A long day for him. But, Aaron, we appreciate you, as always, and for our on-site engineer, Bob Baker, and our former Baylor classmate and colleague, Amanda Miller, hanging out with us in the booth tonight. Amanda, good to have you with us as well. We appreciate that. Thanks for being with us this evening. Tough night. The Bears will try to get back on track on the road 2 weeks away. Speaking for Elliot Coffey, I'm Derek Smith. Thanks so much for joining us. Good night, everyone.
Later, guys.
Live coverage of Baylor football on the Baylor Sports Media Network.